Mikel Arteta has to face the music. Now, for me personally, I'm not one of these Arsenal fans that is, ridiculously positive or ridiculously negative. I do think small sections of our Arsenal fan base, Mikel Arteta could poo in his hands and clap, and people would somehow find the fact that that is great or something about that. Some fans, misery loves company. I personally, if you want Arteta out, if you want him in and you've got evidence to back up such, fair enough. You lot do what you think. In fact, even if you don't, I think every football fan needs to have their opinions. Rightly so, in my opinion. I've woken up peed off, as you can see, dressing gown settings, and I'm sure a lot of you Arsenal fans go through this. Don't get it twisted. Winning, losing, drawing, bumps and bruises, better periods and worse periods. It's what we signed up for as Arsenal fans, or better yet, football fans. Anybody watching this has to be a football fan, right? Me personally, when it comes to Mikel Arteta, it feels like there's a lot of praise when we do well, rightly so, and when we do badly, I do think there's small sections that go a bit overboard. Don't provide critical analysis, but I think we're very quick to look at the players and say, "Oh, Arsenal created all of these chances," which is right. Arsenal created all of these chances. We didn't score. Arteta coached a 4-0 against Liverpool and any other team. Great. That is stuff. In many ways, he did if we scored 2, 3, 4 in the first 15 minutes as we should have, but we didn't. Congratulations to Liverpool. Same goes for West Ham. Same goes for Newcastle. And same goes for Aston Villa. Don't get it twisted. Both sides, the ones that are mad negative and the ones that are positive, I feel in isolation. There's a lot of common sense with what people have said, were we the better team against Liverpool on the large part? Probably. I would trade places with Liverpool because they rested players, gave their interns some debuts, and got through to the next round. The same could be said for Aston Villa. The same could be said for West Ham. The best team doesn't always win. This is football. Arsenal, we've been through it. In fact, the best team doesn't always get something. Sometimes you play amazing and lose. Sometimes you don't draw a draw and you get a draw. Sometimes you lose when you don't deserve to lose. But at the same time, if you have lost, you could say you deserve to lose. No matter how much we shape football, it's decided in both boxes. Defensively, we've fallen off a cliff. Attacking wise, yeah, we're creating a bunch of chances and nobody's putting the ball in the back of the net. Of course, it's not all on Mikel Arteta. The players are grown men, whether they're young or old, they need to score. But indirectly, everything is your fault. I know this is football, but if this was a company, if Arsenal was a business, which in many ways it is, if it was a business, right? And Arteta is the managing director or the manager or the owner, he might not be making the day-to-day decisions, or it might not be him failing, but indirectly, everything that goes right and wrong and more focusing on wrong is your fault. And I do think, when I said it in August, when you go into a season with this squad, the injuries, the lack of putting the ball in the back of the net, the drop-off, the relying on the same 3-4 players that are playing out of their skin, when you're relying on players, young players, that you're burning them out really, and there's no amicable options to come in for them. The way the squad's been assembled, the naivety, everything is a reflection of the manager, the good, bad, and the ugly. We're creating chances. I feel you look back in a few months ago, we wasn't necessarily, regardless of the goals that were being scored. And now it's got worse. I feel there was a lot of Arsenal fans that were hiding behind the fact of we've got multiple different goal scorers, we're sharing the goals. And I said, all right, I hear that. We need to do that. But there's no cold-hearted killers in this team. Everybody's learning how to be a goal scorer. If they're significantly more seasoned, they have not got that in their game. Now, again, in terms of our rebuild, I admire Mikel Arteta and I understand that this is where we're going on. If we're looking at a team that's trying to win an FA Cup, go as far as we can in the Champs, go in the Prem, then it looks, that we have to remove that lens and be a bit more ruthless to everybody and hold ourselves accountable, because I don't think we've learned the lessons. The same way that I've seen us kind of, concede goals and things, we've been getting away with that throughout the season, if I'm honest. We've been playing exactly the same way, really, the good, bad, and the ugly of it. I like what Mikel Arteta is doing. If he was sacked tomorrow, I would like to see the next manager coming in the plan. And I'm not saying to keep him. And I'm not saying that, he's the man and things. I believe in what he's doing. I like what he's doing. I don't wholeheartedly back everything. I do think there's some problems that indirectly, not his fault, but I do think he's created his own issues, really and truly, with how he spent money, with how he's assembled the squad, with the lack of depth in certain positions, with a lack of killers. Defensively, we've dropped off a cliff, and that has to go for Mikel Arteta, the players, and everybody involved, people. As I said, I've got notes here. You have invented this mess indirectly due to how you've assembled the squad. squad in the same way I praise you for certain elements of doing that, people. We're running young stars into the ground. I'm being a bit harsh, but to see no Haaland debuts consistently jars me. And the rut has not stopped. And Mikel Arteta knows the pressure on him. You know, I'm pretty sure he puts the pressure on his own shoulders. As much as I like Mikel Arteta, we got to remember, you know, I'm sure City would have loved to have kept him in the City group. And I'm sure if he left Arsenal tomorrow, he'll be in high regards for a lot of other managerial positions. But let's be honest, and I'm not being disrespectful, you was a novice. Arsenal gave you a job. We gave you a platform. And you've put desire and heart and belief back into the fan base generally, or just in our team. You have improved certain players and there's many good elements, but let's remember, this is a relationship of convenience. We needed a kind of guy that reflects what we're doing with the team. You needed a platform. Let's not act like there's any divine right to manage this football club. Be really and truly, you know, I don't blame you for the players not taking their chances, but indirectly, for example, I do, because you assembled this squad. And we're going to go through it. When I hear certain comments about last season, what some players were doing was an anomaly. You need to get 100 odd goals. How was we going to get that with certain players? And I go back to the summer. Personally, people, I'm not, you know, again, I do think players try to win, but whether you try to win and actually win, the conversation differs. And I think Edu and Arteta tried to do other things that we're not privy to in the transfer market, but indirectly it did not happen. And you know, all you hear is we're working with tight budgets and FFP and all of this jazz in January. I then believe in the summer, this was always something we had to consider. And I'm not criticizing the signing of David Raya, but you've committed a £3 million loan spend. If we knew our budget was strict, and I think Havertz was okay to a degree against Liverpool and is kind of finding his feet. But does Havertz move the needle? If we have a restricted budget, was it worth spending 65 million on ultimately a project player who can play in a bunch of roles and we don't actually know what he is? In years to come, he might show his ability. But right now, it's about making progress. I'm not necessarily sure, and I'm not scapegoating or isolating any individual players. Of course, Timber's injury left you short-handed, but I'm not being funny. It's when you was a player at the Emirates, and definitely since you've been at the club, and just by anybody who watches Premier League football, you know injuries happen to everyone. We've watched the same movie and we're baffled that the same conclusion is happening in that movie. We've seen injuries. You know, any party was fit for 40 odd games last season, but we've seen that. We've seen that with Tomiyasu. We've seen that with Gabriel Jesus. We know Gabriel Jesus can't score goals. We know Saka and Martinelli and Odegaard, they're not seasoned vet in terms of goal scorers, and they're very, very volatile. We needed a proven pedigree goal scorer, and to keep them lot ticking over, we needed a number 8. You can't keep having the same 3-4 players that played well. Off topic, but I feel sorry for Ramsdale and Jorginho in particular, because I think they were all right. I don't blame you for the players not taking their chances because they need to, but indirectly I do, because it's you doing the patterns of play training. It's you who's assembled this squad. It's you who's generated belief. You know, it's you who sat there in August and said, yo, you know what, we could do what we need to do. I'm very disappointed with your performances in the FA Cup. And I've said that in the beginning of my watch along for the game. And I've said that since we won the FA Cup. I'm not going to quite say you threw it away and things like that, but ultimately I want to win trophies. I know some football fans are very snooty and look down on League Cups and FA Cups. And I know you can't win them all, but regardless, you know, footballers want to win trophies. For the manager Mikel Arteta and the players, these are the memories you're going to look back at when your career is done. These are the memories that capture fans. And you look at the amount of active players in the Premier League, or anyone that's in the FA Cup, Champions League, Premier League, how many players participate in these competitions throughout their careers, and how many actually win it? It don't make no sense. And I do think, you know, you haven't budgeted properly. Let's be honest. Mikel Arteta is the first manager post Arsene Wenger. Not that there's been many. You know, Emery wanted Zaha. He got Pepe. Anything Arteta wants, he gets. Money has been spent. They bought into your project. We know what the Cronkies do with young coaches and a hands-off approach. Money has been spent and not too much has been delivered. I do think in the last 18 months, the signings have been a lot better, but there's also been problems. You know, if you can't raise the ceilings of this football club, make sure it doesn't fall off a certain floor. And there's a bunch of players that are not cut to task. And there's some players who might have even played well against Liverpool that are generally in and around the squad that you can't really bet on for 10 or so games. Yes, when you look in our project of Arsenal, cool. But if you're looking at Premier League contenders or trophy winners, it does not make sense. Even if we sign a proven pedigree goal scorer that gets 20, 30, we're going to go through all of this. Mikel Arteta said we need 100 goals. You know, does Haaland get 100 goals for City? Did Salah isolated get 100 goals for Liverpool? No, they did their thing and got a great portion. Other players chipped in. So how have we assembled this squad? It does not make sense, in my opinion. Defensive standards have dropped. They have not dropped overnight. They have not dropped overnight. They've been there consistently, really. And we need to get back to trying to perform across 90 minutes. Mikel Arteta, I'm not going to get vexed for not playing certain squad players, but I don't think you trust all of your players. I really don't. I really don't. You know, Saka and Martinelli look mentally fatigued. Martinelli obviously kissed the bench against Liverpool. You can't pull them out because who the hell plays? You know, any issues in the defense, any more issues for that matter in the defensive third and middle third of our pitch, and we're even more effed than we are now. Got a lot of time for Mikel Arteta. I don't back you religiously. You know, I care about Arsenal Football Club. I don't necessarily care about Mikel Arteta like that, but it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, man. But let's get into it anyways, man. The beginning of this vid didn't even have to be that long, but let's get into this. Control the metrics. You need to score. First half, we should have went into half time at least 1 or 2 goals up, but we allowed Liverpool to get back in the game. And obviously the second half, the statistics were more fair. Havertz had 5 attempts. Nelson had 3. Saka had 2, the same as Liverpool in the first half. You need to kill games. The last few games, we've been getting into double figures, but we've been shy of scoring goals. We have now failed to score in our last 43 shots at the Emirates Stadium. We're meant to be the Gunners. Right now, it's like we're a blunt knife, really. We need to remove the cannons from our chest. And goals win games. No matter how much you shape it, you need to be effective in your defensive half and in the attacking half. And we wasn't against Liverpool. Much has been the theme. Now, you look at the fastest meters per second, we're up there with Burnley, you know. And again, you look at Jorginho, he's been saying this, whether we've won, lost or drawn, the consistencies have been throughout the same thing. You can see it on screen, people. More or less, Jorginho said we need to develop the mindset of when we're controlling games to score goals. It's not enough to be playing well and being at ease, really and truly. Mikel Arteta himself said to be with the top teams this season, you need to score 90 to 100 goals at least. Somehow you need to score those goals. How are we getting that with how he's assembled the squad? Who is getting that? Now, I'm not asking players to get 90 goals, but who's getting a fraction of that? Who's getting 20, 30 in this squad? Arteta has to hold the blame. And then he spoke about Barcelona, rightly so. If you look at what they've done or the history of all teams, you need to back goals, really and truly. And that man comes with a hefty price tag. You look at it, we saw last season that Gabriel Jesus can be utilized, can be the guy, but we need a cold-hearted killer. We needed a proper number 8 in the summer. We needed a cold-hearted killer to get us closer in their own way to Liverpool and City. And obviously we needed our existing players to bag. Have we done any of this? What are we talking about signing in Jan? You know, and for me, Mikel Arteta is a very thoughtful, methodical person. That's one thing I like about him a lot. And this is why I'm using his receipts, because the man himself said it, people. When he's speaking about our forwards from last season, he said, I think what they did last season was exceptional to maintain those numbers. We knew it'd be extremely difficult because it was a one-off, not just for us, a one-off in the league. So we know that we need all the resources and all those kind of goals to maintain that level that we want in the league. So my question is, and again, maybe we tried and maybe we was working with a tighter budget, but if we didn't think Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli, you know, would score these goals, why did we not get a striker? Now, striker wasn't the only area that needed to be addressed in the summer, but why did we not buy a striker? It does not make sense. Whether we tried to or not, we did not buy one. You know, why didn't we go all out for an Ivan Toney in the summer? I know, obviously, he had the ban and wouldn't be utilized. Why didn't we push the boat out for Osimhen? Why didn't we utilize our budget and find a way? Why didn't we go for Osimhen, or Vlahovic, or Ivan Toney? Any striker, even strikers I haven't said, you know, because there's probably a bunch of strikers the club's looking at that we haven't even seen links. Either way, we needed one, really. You know, Vlahovic, a man that Mikel Arteta scouted heavily, tried to buy in January. Juventus, even going back to the summer, had a very delicate financial sort of period around them. Now, if Vlahovic never wanted to leave, fair enough. But whether we needed to buy a winger that would be able to get 10, 15 odd goals, whether it was bringing in a striker that's getting 15, 20, 30 league goals, whether it's, you know, we needed these things. Goals win games. And again, we needed multiple things. I'm happy with the Timber and Rice signings in particular. You can't really justify 65 million for Havertz based on what I've said. And as much as I like and admire Mikel Arteta and the rebuild, money's been spent. As I said earlier in the vid, the premise of when Arteta walked into now, I have nothing but admiration. But from last season, we announced ourselves as maybe potentially the third best team in the league. The margins for error get smaller, and the criticism and the praise has to get more extreme with balance. Money has been spent. We spent a lot of money. For all the money Arteta spent, How much bang for our buck have we really got? It's probably been in the last 18 months, really. It's been a terrible bit of the part of the season, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any better anytime soon. The trip to Dubai could not come any sooner. We lost 1-0 to Aston Villa. We drew against PSV. We did beat Brighton. We drew at Anfield to Liverpool, where probably the same issues were there, but a point at Anfield, fair enough. You know, we were better than West Ham across every metric other than putting the balls in the back of the net, and I'd love to trade places with them because the best team doesn't always win. There were times where you could argue we weren't necessarily the best team when we scored late minute winners or found a way to win. And sometimes your luck runs out. You know, if it's going to be sunny, it's going to rain. We then lost to Fulham, which up there with West Ham in the League Cup, terrible. You know, again, I do think there was elements to like about the Liverpool victory against us recently, but ultimately we're out of the cup and we didn't take our chances, really. The first 15, 20 minutes, first half was a quality watch, really. It's a weird one, if I'm completely honest. Arsenal have now won one of their last 7 games in all comps, losing each of their last 3. It's their fewest wins over a 7-game period under Mikel Arteta. Loss, draw, win, draw, loss, loss, loss. So he's hit a road bump. This will happen again and again. You know, a career in management or a career as footballer, you're not just going to be amazing every game. There is going to be other periods where you hit a roadblock. But the trip to Dubai couldn't come any sooner. These lot need to look in the mirror, forgive themselves for what's gone wrong, pat themselves on the back for what's gone well, and get on with it, because we're at the halfway point. We're probably not going to win a trophy, but you're still in the Champions League. You still need to, for me, minimum top 3 finish. I want to win the Prem, but I don't think we're cut up to that, and salvage some part of your season, really and truly. As I said, you know, I said it at the start of my watch along. I believe since we won the FA Cup, indirectly, Mikel Arteta hasn't managed it correctly in that. You know, we've been knocked out in the 4th round against Southampton. Then we was knocked out in the 3rd round against Nottingham Forest, where I think we was wearing the exact same kit as yesterday. Obviously, we played City and we lost. And on the face of it, there's no shame in losing to Liverpool. But it didn't have to go that way. I don't think Klopp could believe his luck in the first half. But Liverpool, much like every team, you've got to kill them when you've got the opportunity. Arsenal have lost consecutive home games by a margin of 2+ goals for the first time, since May 2009. We've hit a roadblock. We need to get out of it. There's no excuses. Anyone who can't take the pressure, get out of the club. Pressure is a privilege. The highs are very high, the lows are very lows. But what are we going to do? Curl into a ball and cry? Woe is me. We can't put the ball in the back of the net. We can't defend. We've quote unquote been better than teams and not won. Why not? Because I do think in the league, against Newcastle, against Aston Villa, against West Ham, and in the FA Cup, definitely the first half against Liverpool, we were the better team. But that caveat, how were we? We didn't score the goals. We didn't take advantage. You know, football is a 90-minute game. And you can control all the variables, but it's decided in both boxes. We didn't defend well enough. The second goals come because we're chasing the game. The first one, unnecessary free kick, joke man defending, really and truly. And we're not putting the ball in the back of the net. And as much as I feel the players have to find their shooting boots, if everybody is failing to score goals, indirectly, it's Mikel Arteta's fault. Because if every player is underperforming in that metric, what's the manager doing? Really and truly. It's not making sense. And these lot need to pull their finger out immediately.